Welcome, everybody. I have some questions for you. Are you afraid to pursue your dreams? Are you plagued with limiting beliefs about your earning potential? Are you successful, but you feel guilty or undeserving of it? Well, if you are going through any of this, or if you know anyone who's going through this, then you are in the right place. Today on Strategize Your Business Online, we are going to be covering how to move past doubt and imposter syndrome. So, welcome to Strategize Your Business Online. This is the live for entrepreneurs like yourself who are looking for a dose of business inspo and ways to leverage the online space. My name is Dee Boswell-Buck, and my company is Boswell-Buck Creative Consulting. And what we do is we help you to connect with your dream clients in the online space with strategy. Today, I have an amazing guest, and her name is Roxanne, and I'm going to read her intro. So, Roxanne Francis is an award winning CEO of Francis Psychotherapy and Consulting Services, and she runs a busy group therapy practice. She's a keynote speaker, a leadership coach, and corporate consultant who addresses topics related to women's issues, race and equity, mental health, parenting, and wellness at work. Roxanne is also frequently in the media sharing her expertise. Roxanne Francis, welcome to Strategize Your Business Online. How are you today?
I am so well. Thank you so much for having me, Dee.
Thank you so much for saying yes. I am just going to think back for a moment from when I first saw you. So I first saw you like on the media.
Oh,
So
wow.
I watch those morning programs. I don't watch
Mm,
the news too often, but I love to watch the morning programs. And I saw that you would come on and you would speak about topics that really resonated.
mhm.
And I'm thinking about some of the topics such as setting boundaries when you've got family coming to your home, or
Yes.
perhaps you've got those festive days of the year and you don't feel very festive.
Hmm.
And then, of course, thankful for social media, I found you online and I really enjoy the content that you share. We're not going to talk too much about the content right now. I'm going to give you a little place of that.
That's all right. Thank you. I'm glad that you found me in the media. I'm glad that the content, the information, resonated with you. It's one of the reasons why I do that. Sometimes when they ask, I say yes because for many people, it's the only way that they get some of this information. So it's good to be seen.
Right, right. Well, before we go further, I would just like to do a little bit of housekeeping. So, everyone who is watching the live, thank you very much for tuning in. Right now, this live, it's streaming live on LinkedIn and on Facebook. And because I do believe in repurposing, you will see it a little bit later on YouTube. So, no matter what time you're watching, if you're watching this live or if you're watching it later, please share in the comments your name, the name of your business, your zone of genius. So how is it that you help your clients, and where is it that we can find you outside of the platform that we are seeing you on right now? So Roxanne, if we can get started.
Mhm.
So this show is also about like being very inspirational. Can you talk a bit about your journey? Like how did you get here?
Oh gosh. So I went to school for social work. I became a registered social worker. And when that was over, I started working for agencies in the community. I worked for some really lovely places. Um, I will say that my last place of employment, the clients and my colleagues were amazing. And I think the management team could use some support. We'll just put it that way. And even though I was doing this work for years, I just got to a place where the culmination of having challenging management while having very little people in my home who needed my attention, it just did not jive well. And so I eventually started private practice on the side. I did that for a number of months and then eventually left and started my business maybe about a year and a half before the pandemic. Then the
Mm,
pandemic hit. Everyone came home. And after that, I think people began to realize the importance of needing mental health supports. The business grew, and I started working in the corporate space, sharing some of the things that I learned while I was working for organization. And it has mushroomed from there. And now we have the therapy side of the company, but we also have the side of the company that serves corporations as well.
Nice. Now, when you say that you had your the side practice, and then you eventually left, and I just like to fill in the gaps because it's
Mhm.
like, wow, that sounded very easy. But what was it that made you say, yeah, not, I'm losing sleep over this. It's not
Mhm.
working for me. And was that transition scary?
It was very scary. It
Mm.
was very scary. I remember speaking to my partner one night, he took my hand and said, "It's going to be okay." I was shaking because I said, "There is no way. There is no way that I can do this long term anymore." And we talked about it. And of course, I'm grateful that he was supportive. But in all honesty, after I handed in my letter of resignation, I went and I found a part-time job. I
Mm.
found a part-time job at a clinic who was looking for a social worker 2 days a week. And I decided to do that because I was like, what if this doesn't work out? What am I going to do? How am I going to be sure that the clients are going to come? And so I did the part-time job for a few months, and eventually I knew I needed to leave that when I was at the part-time job, strategizing about my business and being annoyed at the people at having to be there to do work, right? So I knew it was time to let that go and go in full force on this business. But it was scary.
Hmm. I remembered when I was losing sleep, and then my husband said to me, so for me, sometimes it's just words that just get me moving. And he said, so he calls me by my last name, and he's like, Boswell, I think you are comfortably uncomfortable. And I was like, No, he did not just say that." But
Mhm.
the words, I was like, yeah, that is how I'm feeling. And you're talking about handing in your notes. So the day that I handed in my resignation, I really wanted to make sure it was going to happen. I must have made 5 copies, and
Wow.
I carried them in case one dropped, or
In case you
in
lost
case I
one,
lost one, because it really has to move
Yeah, it
to the
has to
right.
make it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so this is really a great topic because I'm sure, you were losing sleep, and then you had that doubt.
Hmm.
And then today we're talking about imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
And my question to you is, imposter syndrome, is this something, well, first of all, like what would you consider it to be? What would you consider it the definition to be? And
Hmm.
do a lot of people have imposter syndrome?
So I'll tell you what people consider imposter syndrome, and I'll share with you my thoughts on that. So, the idea or the term imposter syndrome, the way that people tend to use it is around this idea of, here I am in this role, and I don't feel really confident in this role. I don't really feel like I know what I'm really doing in this role, and I'm worried that someone's going to find out and the jig will be up, right? At the end of the day, it's a form of anxiety, right? But I have a really interesting take. I'm not a fan of the term imposter syndrome. I believe in the feeling that people carry, but I really don't think that the term imposter syndrome really exists. Now, the researchers who came up with that phrase will definitely be angry with me, but the idea of being an imposter, I don't think that there's anyone here pretending to be someone that they're not, right? I'm not saying that that does not exist. There are people who bamboozle their way through somehow. But if you have started a business through your zone of genius, or you have acquired a position through your skill and you've interviewed and you've been successful that way, then you're not tricking anybody. You're not an imposter. You're not pretending to be someone that you're not. You got there by your own merit, right? And so I think, I talk to my clients often about trying to do away with the term imposter and just calling it what it is. Being nervous, feeling anxious, worried that you're going to be able to do a good job. And if we really take a look at imposter syndrome, or the idea of imposter syndrome, it tends to happen mostly when we're in a new situation, right? And the analogy that I often give is, I have two little boys, and well, they're not so little anymore, but I'm not as organized as I seem. And every winter, when it's the first snowfall, I go rummaging through the closets looking for last year's boots. And inadvertently, they put the boots on and they'll say, "Mommy, they're too tight." And I'll roll my eyes and I'll take them to the shoe store and we'll try boots on, and they find something that they like and they put the shoes on, and I smush my thumb at the front of the shoe because I'm looking for space. Because if I get them something where their feet hit the front of the shoe, it means that they're going to outgrow it very soon. So I'm looking for space to grow. And my older son, I remember the last time I did that, he said to me, "Mommy, these are too big." And I said, "No, they fit. There's just a little room at the front." And I let my clients know, especially my clients who are sort of high achieving or have these big positions, who are now at the C-suite, who feel uncomfortable, I say to them, that discomfort that you're feeling is your room to grow. You are no longer bucking up at the walls. Your toes are no longer touching the edge of the shoe. That was your last position. That was a thing that you could do with your eyes shut in your sleep. Someone wake you up at 3 a.m. You could speak to that bleary-eyed and in your PJs. But now you're in a brand new position. There are things for you to learn. There are people for you to get used to. There are files that you have to study. There are meetings that you have to attend that you've never attended before. So yes, you are going to feel uncomfortable. Yes, you are going to feel a little bit out of your depth. That's because you are in a bigger pond now, right? And so that feeling that you have is a little bit of anxiety, but you're not an imposter. You are where you're supposed to be and you belong there.
I wish that whenever I go to Google or anyone else goes to Google, if they are looking, or if I'm looking for the term imposter syndrome, which I have, I wish like all of this came up instead. Like it was all like Roxanne Francis, Roxanne Francis. Because I think I would feel so much better. Like you really simplified it. And I caught that you mentioned about, those high achievers, people who are CEOs, like C-suite, which makes me also realize that that happens no matter where you are. This feeling of anxiety and this feeling of feeling nervous. Yeah.
I have a similar, but also another take, if I may,
Yeah.
around the idea of imposter syndrome. Most people who find themselves carrying this feeling are women, or people generally from some kind of historically marginalized community. So generally, women, persons of color, maybe an immigrant, someone with a disability, someone whose first language is the English, someone from generally a historically marginalized community. And that's often the case because when you get to a place of quote unquote success, there are less and less people from your background in that space, right? And so you feel like you do not belong. And so you feel like, oh, I shouldn't be here. I wonder if I can do the job like the others who don't look like me. And so we begin to feel like we shouldn't be here. Someone's going to find out that I don't belong. And, to say something that's a little controversial, I believe that in itself can be seen as, a vestige of white supremacy, if you will, right? A lot of people don't like to hear that term. A lot of people are uncomfortable with that term, but we have to look at the systems that that we live in, right? The systems that make these rules, the systems that have these ways of operating. And so the higher you go in certain systems and organizations, the less and less you see people from historically marginalized communities. And we live in a world as human beings where we like to feel like we belong. And when you are in a position or a place or a situation where you see no one who embodies life the way that you do, you start to feel like you don't belong. And people call that imposter syndrome.
Okay, thank you for breaking it down. I think about like if we're going to just speak about women in general as an example, I think there's a study where there could be a job opening,
Oh, yes.
and so white white
Mm-hmm.
men, they will see this, and maybe there'll be 8 skills that they're not a fit for. And for women, we see one skill that we're not a fit for, and it's like, yeah, I can't
I can
apply for this
apply for that.
job, right?
Yeah, we count ourselves out so much faster than people who are typically seen as leaders, right? And so we have to be mindful. We have to remind ourselves that we're not imposters. Even though we might not have that one skill, we have the others. And so we qualify for most of those things that we count ourselves out of. And so I encourage us to embrace the discomfort and step up to the plate. It's all about learning and growing.
And also, I mean, when we lean into that feeling, so I'm going to try not to say imposter syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
but but when we lean into that feeling, and it just kind of like, and it just overcomes us, it stops us from greatness, or
Yes.
from doing some amazing things that can move us forward. I
Yes.
think about, so here we are, we're on this LinkedIn Live, and thank you again for being here.
Of
So
course.
this LinkedIn Live was supposed to start January 2023.
Mm.
And 2022, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this LinkedIn Live. I had everything in place. This is going to happen. January came, 2023, and I kind of found excuses. But I also know, while I had these excuses, they were being created because I felt very nervous about showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And there was the whole point of, is it going to go well? How many people are going to show up? Who
Right.
am I to show up here every single week? So it was January. It took me about 5.5 months to start the live.
Wow.
Yeah, 5.5. And yeah, I mean, sometimes there's quite a few people here who are watching, and on occasion it's been 0. But I'm so happy that to
Yes.
do it. It has really opened up some really great opportunities for my business as well. However, it was the imposter syndrome, or that feeling of nervousness, and it was paralyzing.
The interesting thing that people don't realize about that is most often, I wouldn't say all the time, but most often, when you have that paralyzing fear, when you have that anxiety, where you have that self-doubt, you're the only one who notices that. And we think that everyone can see it. But when you show up, people only see that you show up in what looks like greatness.
Yeah.
Because I first found you or heard about you or saw you on a LinkedIn Live, and you looked as professional and amazing and, as boss lady as they come. And yes. And I would not have known that there was any kind of nervousness or worry or concern. Right. And so we have to, I like to say, about my fear, I like to tell people that fear will always come along for the ride, but you can't let it drive, right? We have to make sure that we're in the driver's seat so that we keep moving, that we keep going forward.
So here's my question for you. Fear is coming along for the ride, right? We want to like leave it in the back seat, or it
Yeah.
could even stay in the passenger seat. We need to like maybe just, hey, I don't need you to give me some directions right now. So, what do you think are 2 things that we can do to, I don't know if the word is push past fear,
Yeah.
or to work with fear, acknowledge it, and get to that next step that we want to, like
Yeah.
kick that feeling of anxiety or nervousness, or work with it, kick it to the
The first thing that I tell people to do, and I do this myself, is I look for my receipts. What are some things that I have done in the past that I was afraid of? Or what is something that I have done in the past that was successful, right? I look for those receipts, I fold them up, and I put them in my back pocket. So every time I get nervous, every time I get fearful, I remind myself that I can do this thing, right? I'll tell you a very short story. I learned how to drive when I was about 26 years old because I was so afraid of the highway. And all of my friends got their driver's license and I didn't. And I eventually learned how to drive and I eventually got on the highway. And now every time I have something to do that I think to myself, if you can conquer the 401 in Ontario, you can do this, right? And I think of the things that I was once very nervous about. I think of the things that I didn't think was going to be successful. And even if there were things that you tried that didn't pan out the way you wanted them to, at least you tried. And so you can try again. So remind yourself of those attempts and those successes that you've had. I also tell people to look around you, look around your circle, people around you who are doing great things. Remind yourself that, I like to think of success like the weather. When it rains, it doesn't just rain in your neighbor's yard, it rains in yours too. And I tell myself, oh, okay, so these people around me are doing these great things. Yeah, it's going to come around to me too. Right. And I think of that as well when I'm tempted to think about comparison. They're doing this great thing and I'm not. They must be great and I'm not. I remind myself, no, it's just coming around to you. It's like, you're gonna get your rain too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try not to let. Listen, fear is there to protect you, right? Fear is there to keep you safe. Fear is there to say, are you sure you want to leave that full-time job? It's been your benefits and your pension and all those things. And I ask myself, what is at risk if I don't? Right? That thing, there's a reason that you want the thing. There's that next step, that next level, that dream, that vision. Ask yourself, okay, what is, we know what can happen if I stay here. But what is the thing that's actually possible if you cross over onto the other side and try to let that lead you?
Yeah, those are great tips. Something that I lean into as well is, or what has worked for me too, is that I say to myself, those people that I admire on social media, or just, if there's that time where I might feel like I need to compare, or, sometimes my clients are like, they're comparing, like, I want to have something like that, or, we were not a first adapter, so we can't really like get on this platform.
Right.
And one of the things I say is that a lot of these individuals who have hundreds of thousands of followers, they started with zero.
Mm-hmm.
They all started with zero.
Yes.
So that's usually the thing that gets me going. Like if I want to start on a new platform, I'll say something in my head like, well, Oprah had zero one time.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, we all
Exactly.
started in the same
Exactly.
place.
Yep.
Yeah.
And some people have more resources than others, right?
Yes.
So you let them do what they do, and we're gonna do what we do.
Right. Right. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Of
I
course.
wanted to know, in terms of, I love to ask my guests when it comes to social media. So first of all, like I said, you're quite active, and I think I say this every week. So maybe people who are watching are gonna be like, "Dee, you always say this story." But so I'm just gonna say it quicker. So
Yes.
my real name is Denise.
Yes.
Everybody calls me Dee. And I do digital marketing. That wasn't a plug. That's what I do. But I do digital marketing and I manage my time on social media. So there is, like, say, this time of the day, during the day, say after I drop off my daughter to about maybe 7 o'clock, to about when I pick her up, it's working for the client. So I'm not really drawn in. However, like my account, I do see my account and I see who I'm connected to. And there are some people like they can say things and then it pulls me out of the Boswell-Buck time. It could be at 2 p.m. And it's like individuals like you, Roxanne. It's like you say something and I'm like, oh, no, this is not Denise time. You're not going to engage because maybe she'll answer, then you'll want to flip back in there. I
Yes.
think you do social media so well
Oh, thank
that
you.
you really draw in. And I think sometimes, like when I do answer, then it's like I had answered something on Threads, and I answer, and then it's like, okay, I'm off. I am
Yes, back to the
and I'm on. Right? I remembered I commented on something earlier this morning on your account, and it's like, no, Boswell, it is time to get the
right,
cereal on. And
right,
things like
right.
but I wanted to ask you, like, what is your favorite social media platform?
Oh gosh. I have to say, favorite, just on a personal note, I probably would say Instagram.
Mhm.
I just find it to be a little bit more personable. You can just, start a reel and say what you like, and you can engage with people, send them messages, that kind of thing. I enjoy LinkedIn as well, but I tend to use that more professionally, if you will. I definitely connect with people on LinkedIn, but that's generally more um, organization, corporate, uh, leadership, coaching, that kind of thing. I think definitely in terms of hanging out, I think Instagram is
Mhm.
more where I tend to hang out.
Right. Okay. And I don't ask this question often because I do my research and I see like you're not. So I'm going to say this first that I tell people you do not have to be everywhere.
Right.
So I noticed that you're not quite as active, say on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So have you like made some decisions? Like you told me about like the platforms that you enjoy. And
Yes.
are there specific platforms that are really great for your business as opposed to others?
Yeah, I think for my business, I find that most of I will say that I think I built my client base for therapy on Instagram.
Hmm.
Um, I find that most of the people who are interested in therapy, who are thinking about therapy, who are looking for therapy for their loved ones, tend to hang out on Instagram. I used to have a personal Facebook account, and then I didn't close it, but I kind of just left it for a bit. And then when I decided to have a business Instagram account, then I went over to Facebook and I created you have to create the thing on one end and have the thing on the other end. So I did that, and then I allow for some of my posts on Instagram to also post over on Facebook. And I have an intern who kind of keeps her eye on that a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, but definitely what I did was I did something similar to what you are doing now on LinkedIn. Was when everyone went into lockdown over the pandemic, I created a LinkedIn live. Sorry, I keep saying LinkedIn. I created an Instagram live, and I went live every Wednesday night at 8 for almost 3 years.
Wow.
And it was a program called Afterthought, and we talked about mental health. We talked about people were worried about their children's mental health. We talked about that. We talked about relationships that were either being strengthened or falling apart as a result of the pandemic. We talked about how to crawl out of the pandemic, how to manage your anxiety as people were going brunching again. Um, and people just really connected. And this is where people would come on a Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. And then after the next day, I would post the highlights. Hey, did you miss the live? You don't have time to watch it? Here are some of the highlights that you should pay attention to. And that really resonated with people. And I think it drew a lot of people to us, and people told others about us. I think that's where the media found me. It really played a big part I think, in my business's success.
That's amazing. And just to go back to our main topic, I think that one of the great ways to work through anxiety and nervousness is just to keep on showing up and
Yes.
doing it over and over again.
Yes. Girl, if I tell you, the very first time I put my phone up. I was so scared about going live.
Mm.
I was not that person. I thought, this is live. What if something happens? I knocked over my phone. There were all kinds of things. I would whisper. I was so nervous. But to your point, the more I showed up, the more confident I became. And I think that's probably where I get the confidence for showing up on social media.
Nice. So just to, ask a couple of questions before we wrap up, what would you say, like, how do people feel once they finish working with you? Like, what are
Hmm.
a couple of the things that they walk away with?
Yeah. So when people work with me and other members of my team, but certainly with myself, the things that I've heard is that they feel unburdened, they feel energized, they feel seen. That's a huge one. They feel seen, they feel understood, they feel hope. Um, Oftentimes people come to therapy because they're at their wits' end. It's not usually the first thing that people think of. When people are getting overwhelmed, they think, let me talk to my spouse, let me talk to my sister, I'm going to call my girlfriend, I'm going to go for a walk. Sometimes they do all the things, and then they finally come to therapy when nothing else seems to work. And people worry about being judged, and they worry that, they won't be seen as strong, or somehow they can hack it, or they can't see their way out of the woods that they found themselves in. And therapy gives you a safe, non-judgmental space. It gives you a flashlight to find yourself out of the woods and a guide to go with you, right? So it's definitely something that people feel hopeful after they leave a therapy session. But also, I support organizations and people who work for businesses, and whether they come to me for coaching or they have me come in for a workshop, people feel understood, they feel seen, and they feel like they now have a roadmap for how to do the thing, how to roll out the program, how to write the HR policy, or how to sit in
Mm,
the boardroom with their colleagues.
yeah. Okay. It's great that there's businesses that still want to make a change.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, Roxanne, do you have anything coming up for your practice or anything that you'd like to highlight and let us know about?
Yeah, well, our therapy team is growing and we're always taking new clients. Our promise to people is no wait list ever. So
Mm,
definitely, if anyone is looking for therapy, we are open. We see people in person and virtually across the province. Well, virtually across the province of Ontario. And outside of that, I also work with individuals who I like to coin them as high achievers. So people who are leveling up, people who are working towards growing their career, people who are getting into a new position at work, and they are looking for some support in leadership. They're looking for some support around managing their mindset. Then I'm the person for you. We have we're at almost, I can't believe we're close to the end of February already, but I do have some spots opening up for people who are looking for uh, leadership coaching or mindset coaching. And I also support therapists who are also growing their business.
nice. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Hmm.
So, first of all, where can somebody go to book an appointment? And
Yes.
also, if someone wants to continue to follow you, they're like, I'm on the cusp of reaching out to Roxanne and her team. So, where can they go and book? And where can people continue to follow you to find out more about you?
Yes, so to book me or any of the clinicians on my team for therapy, as well as if you're interested in workshops or coaching, definitely head to our website. It's www.francispsychotherapy.com, and there are tabs that will help you uh, to go to whichever area you're interested in. Therapy is the most obvious tab, and then the others are there as well. And if you are looking to find me on these social media streets, you can find me on Instagram at Francis Psychotherapy. If you're here on LinkedIn, you can search my first and last name, Roxanne Francis dash MSW RSW. Just go to Google and type my name. I'm sure that you will see my face all over the place.
Yes. because I've done a lot of research, and you will. There's some. I'm so thankful that you're here on Strategize Your Business Online today. And I just also want to say, for those who are going to look you up on Google, there are some great conversations that you are involved in on various topics, lots of ways that people can learn how to navigate life with a little bit more ease. So, yeah, Google for sure. So yeah, well, we're coming up to the end. And again, thanks so much, Roxanne. So everybody, if let us know like what some of your takeaways are. And if you are watching the replay, share in the comments like what your takeaway is. Let us know who you are, where else we can find you online, and your website. And we will be uploading this to YouTube. So I appreciate everybody who watches. So I will see you next week. And again, Roxanne, thank you. And every